Kessel is one of those planets that gets mentioned a lot in Star Wars media, but is seen a lot less. In Canon, Kessel did make 2 major appearances in Star Wars Rebels, Solo, and Season 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars, but even these appearances are somewhat lacking in detail, and they differ sharply with how Kessel was depicted in older Star Wars media. In Legends, Kessel was absolutely nothing like the sulfur-stained, smoke-shrouded planet seen in its more well-known depictions, and in this video, we're going to be examining it in detail.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
To understand Kessel's place in the galaxy, we first need to quickly consider the spice trade as a whole. Narcotic spice, not to be confused with cooking spice, came in a variety of forms that were found all over the galaxy, each with differing effects and uses. For most of Republic history, spice was legal, but heavily taxed and regulated from production to distribution, and legally acquired spice was generally used for medicinal purposes. But spice was also in high demand for use as a recreational substance, and there was a booming black market built around fulfilling this demand. In the waning years of the Republic, as Coruscant's ability to regulate the Outer Rim steadily diminished, spice smuggling and criminal enterprises built on the underground spice trade flourished, and formerly Republic-administered spice mines and distribution centers came into the hands of the Hutt Cartel, Black Sun, the Pike Syndicate, and many other criminal outfits. These organizations thrived in the chaos caused by the Clone Wars, only for the Galactic Empire to emerge and crack down on their operations. The Empire nationalized most of the galaxy's spice production and instituted draconian laws against the consumption and distribution of spice, with the stated aim of cracking down on addiction and social decline. Its actual aim, however, was to control the spice trade and the profits it generated. Spice production actually increased during the Imperial era, as the Empire turned many spice mines into penal colonies and sent convicts from all over the galaxy to work there as de facto slaves. Kessel was the most well-known of these penal colonies, and also one of the most dangerous. That was because Kessel wasn't just any old spice mine. It was the galaxy's only source of the most valuable and potent variety of spice, glitterstim. This exotic brand of space coke not only gave users the typical spice high, but also limited telepathic and empathetic capabilities, allowing them to feel the thoughts and emotions of other sentient beings for a brief spell. Owing to the ecstasy of this experience, it was also extraordinarily addictive, and excessive glitterstim use caused neural degeneration. Glitterstim addicts, derisively known as glitbiters, were identifiable by the symptoms of this degradation, the most common of which were loss of sight, paranoia, twitching, and nervousness. Still, some glitterstim addicts were able to hide their addiction well enough to achieve positions of power. Notable glitbiters included Figrin Da'an of the Modal Nodes and Imperial Grand Admiral Tuckle. Apart from its recreational uses though, glitterstim was also a potent medicinal substance, and its ability to grant temporary telepathic powers meant that it was constantly being studied by galactic intelligence agencies. This meant that Kessel's mines were always in operation regardless of who controlled them. Kessel was located in the Kessel sector at the heart of the Morn Nebulae, a vast, tangled knot of star-forming regions that took up most of the sector. Most of the settled worlds in the Kessel sector were located on the nebulae's outskirts, but Kessel was located deep within the cluster. This made it incredibly hard to access, and there were only 2 routes linking Kessel to the outside galaxy. The official route was the Kessel Trade Corridor, which was heavily patrolled and wound between Kessel and Zerm on the Pabol Slaheron. The other was the Kessel Run, an unofficial, highly dangerous route that bypassed Republic and later Imperial patrols by running from Kessel to Formos on the Trielis trade route, weaving through blindingly bright nebulae, an asteroid field known as the Pit, and the Maw black hole cluster to reach the Kessel system. The dangers of the Kessel Run and the Maw cluster are a story for another time, however. The Kessel system itself consisted of 3 planets and a bunch of scattered asteroids orbiting the blue-white Type B star Kessel. 2 of these planets, the molten rock Senna and the iceball Caretta, were barren and unimportant. Kessel, which lay between them, was the only part of the system worth visiting for the most part. Kessel was a misshapen lump of a planet, looking more like an asteroid than anything else, but it was considered a proper planet due to its size. It was only slightly smaller than your average terrestrial planet, and it was nearly twice the size of Mustafar. Why Kessel wasn't gravitationally rounded when its gravity, which was 0.82 standard, was strong enough that it should have been, is a mystery. Kessel's surface was mostly barren, consisting of jagged mountain ranges and empty alkali flats. It was cold and had only a tenuous atmosphere that was constantly being eroded by solar wind from Kessel, forcing the Republic to build factories on Kessel's surface that constantly pumped additional oxygen and nitrogen into the sky to replenish the atmosphere. Nonetheless, most sentients needed breath masks to be able to breathe on Kessel, at least outside of its climate-controlled habitats. There were quite a few of these, most of them mines, prisons, or both. There was also a single city on the planet, the military town known as Cassandra. Kessel had a single natural satellite, the Garrison Moon, which was barren and, unlike Kessel, gravitationally rounded. During the Imperial era, convicts bound for the spice mines were sent first to the Garrison Moon, which had been partially hollowed out to make way for an enormous prison complex, the Kessel Correctional Facility. The upper levels of this complex were dominated by docking bays, communications infrastructure, processing facilities, and slave pens, while the command center and local military garrison were housed on the lowest level of the facility. The Garrison Moon was the Empire's command center in the Kessel system, looming over the prisoners on the planet below night after night. Glitterstim was actually an organic substance produced by energy spiders native to Kessel. These spiders lived in pitch-black caves deep in the planet's crust, feeding on raw energy and spinning webs of glitterstim. They'd been doing this for long enough that veins of old glitterstim ran through Kessel's crust. The energy spiders were one of Kessel's only native species, and they were so unusual that they were sometimes theorized to be creations of the Celestials. They were also extremely dangerous. Their legs were tipped with razor-sharp talons, and they were completely resistant to blaster fire, since they fed on energy. They would often attack glitterstim miners, spraying webbing from their mouths to trap them before impaling their helpless prey and sucking out their life forces. As you might expect, the energy spiders made glitterstim mining highly dangerous. This was compounded by the fact that glitterstim was photoactive, so it had to be mined with primitive tools in complete darkness. This was a nightmarish experience in itself, but it was worsened by the fact that the darkness made accidents common, and it also left the miners vulnerable to spider attacks. In the lowest levels of the mines, spider attacks were so common that penal colony administrators often sent troublesome inmates down there to be disposed of. Life in the spice mines of Kessel was pure hell, a fate worse than death. It's unknown when Kessel's glitterstim nodes were discovered. The first known galactic power to lay claim to the planet was the Empire of Zim the Despot, which knew it as Zo's Eye, and there were also ancient ruins and temples scattered across the Alkali Flats that were thought to be of Sith origin. But the first known mines on Kessel were opened by the Galactic Republic not long after glitterstim's discovery. Originally, the Republic directly oversaw the mines, which were operated by volunteers, but as the Republic started to decline, its grip on Kessel loosened. At one point, the Republic contracted the Colicoids to run the mines, and during the Separatist crisis, it lost control of Kessel altogether, allowing it to fall under the control of the Hutt Cartel and the Pike Syndicate, the latter of which had grown tremendously wealthy by smuggling spice along the Kessel Run. They manned the spice mines via slave labor. After the Clone Wars, the Hutts and Pikes were driven out by the Empire, which took direct control of Kessel and transformed it into the most brutal penal colony in the galaxy. The Empire too used slave labor to man the mines, this time in the form of prisoners brought in from all over the galaxy. After the Battle of Endor, Kessel came under the rule of a series of imperial warlords before being liberated by the New Republic circa 11 ABY. The New Republic freed all the slaves on Kessel, and the planet was bought by Lando Calrissian, who brought in Nien Nunb as the planet's new administrator. Lando brought in a new droid workforce to work the mines, while Nien Nunb founded a small colony of cave-dwelling sentients with good night vision in Kessel's cave, where they formed a thriving community that oversaw glitterstim production. So, somehow, Kessel ended up getting a happy ending. But what do you think? Do you prefer Legends Kessel or Canon Kessel? Free to post your thoughts in the comments section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.